You know that feeling, that sudden, sharp pain right in your chest? It just stops you cold, right? And your mind immediately starts racing. The first thought is almost always the same. Is this my heart? And look, that fear is totally and completely valid. That feeling, the pressure, the squeezing, it's terrifying. It feels so serious because, it's happening right where we think our most vital organ lives. It's a really common and honestly a pretty distressing experience for anyone who goes through it. But what if that fear, as real and intense as it feels, is actually pointing to something else entirely? It turns out a huge number of these scary episodes have absolutely nothing to do with the heart. So what else could possibly be going on? Well, let's dive in and explore the possibilities. Okay, so what we're really talking about here is a condition called non-cardiac chest pain. You'll see it called NCCP for short. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today, because understanding what it is, that's the absolute first step to getting a handle on it. So here's the crucial thing to get. NCCP feels exactly like heart pain. It's like a perfect imposter. It mimics it so well that even doctors have to run tests to tell them apart. This isn't imaginary, it's very real pain. It just comes from a different source. And this next point is absolutely critical. I really can't stress this enough. Never self-diagnose chest pain. Please don't do it. NCCP is what doctors call a diagnosis of exclusion. That's just a fancy way of saying they only land on this diagnosis after they've done a full medical workup and confirmed 100% that your heart is healthy. And if you've ever gone through this, I want you to know you are so far from alone. Seriously, studies show that about 13% of people around the world experience this. That's a huge number. It's a really widespread issue that affects millions and millions of people. So as you can see, the list of potential causes is, well, it's all over the map. You've got gastrointestinal stuff like acid reflux, musculoskeletal problems, even things like respiratory conditions. But for today, we're going to zero in on the two heavy hitters, the most common sources of this pain, the gut and the mind. All right, let's jump into our first major category, the gut-chest connection. And this might surprise you, but a huge amount of what feels like chest pain actually starts in your esophagus, that tube connecting your throat to your stomach. And this chart right here really tells the story. Look at that big slice. Gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GORD for short, is the single biggest culprit. We're talking about it being responsible for at least half of all NCCP cases. It's pretty much the elephant in the room when we talk about this kind of pain. You probably know GERD by its more common name, severe chronic acid reflux. But that acid is doing more than just causing heartburn. It's actually irritating the supersensitive lining of your esophagus. And here's the kicker. The esophagus shares nerve pathways with the heart's. So when it gets irritated, it sends pain signals that feel identical to a cardiac event. Okay, another big one coming from the gut is something called esophageal spasms. The easiest way to think about this, it's literally like getting a Charlie horse, but in your esophagus. The muscles just suddenly and painfully clench up, creating this incredibly powerful squeezing feeling right in the middle of your chest. And what's really fascinating about these spasms is that they can have some very specific, almost weird triggers. For some people, it might be a glass of red wine. For others, it could be something as simple as a big gulp of ice-cold water that just, boom, sets off that sudden, alarming pain. Kind of wild, right? All right, let's switch gears now. We're moving from the gut up to the mind. The connection between how we feel mentally and what we feel physically is just incredibly powerful. And chest pain? It's one of the most common ways that stress decides to show up in the body. So think about it. When you get stressed or anxious, your body snaps into that fight or flight mode, right? It floods your system with hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, getting you ready to face down a threat. It's this ancient survival mechanism, but it has very real, very physical effects on us today. So, how exactly does that stress response turn into actual pain? Well, this chart kind of lays out the perfect storm. First, all the muscles in your chest tense up. At the exact same time, your heart starts pounding away. And then, to top it all off, your breathing gets all rapid and shallow. It's that triple whammy, that combination, that creates that intense feeling of tightness and pressure. And the link here is it's undeniable. Get this, research shows that about half of all people diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder also report feeling chest discomfort. So let's be clear, this is not just in your head. It's a genuine physical symptom of what's going on psychologically. So the big question is, can you tell the difference? Well, it's not a perfect science, but there are definitely clues you can look for. Gut-related pain, that's often described as burning, like classic heartburn, and it can be tied to when you eat. On the other hand, stress-related pain is usually described as tight or heavy, and it tends to ebb and flow with your anxiety levels. Okay, so understanding the causes is great, but the real question is, what can you actually do about it? Let's talk solutions. We're going to move into the management phase now and look at everything from medical diagnoses to practical things you can do yourself. Well, if your doctor thinks your pain might be coming from your gut, they'll often start with a really simple first step. It's basically a trial run with something called a proton pump inhibitor, or PPI. They'll give you a course of this acid-reducing medicine for a few weeks, and if the pain gets better, that's a really strong clue that GRD is the culprit. Now, this flowchart might look a little complicated at first glance, but it really just shows the logical steps a doctor might take. It all starts with them talking to you, getting your history, and doing an exam to rule out any immediate red flags. Then, like we just said, you might try that PPI test. If it works, fantastic. If not, the path might lead to other tests, like an endoscopy, to get a closer look inside. The main takeaway here is that there's a clear step-by-step process to figure out what's really going on. But what about stress-related pain? Well, here the focus shifts to calming down that fight or flight response. And you've got a whole toolbox for this. We're talking relaxation techniques like meditation or deep breathing. Regular exercise is a huge one. It helps burn off those stress hormones and releases feel-good endorphins. And of course, the basics. Good sleep, good nutrition, those are non-negotiable. And for many people, therapy, especially something like cognitive behavioral therapy, can be a total game changer for learning new ways to manage the anxiety at its source. But what about right now? Like, what can you do in the middle of a stressful moment when you feel that tightness? One of the most powerful and easiest tools you have is something called belly breathing, or diaphragmatic breathing. Seriously, let's just walk through it right now. First, lie on your back and get comfy. Maybe bend your knees. Okay, now place one hand on your upper chest and the other one right below your rib cage on your belly. Now, breathe in slowly through your nose and really focus on letting your stomach rise up and push your hand up. The hand on your chest shouldn't move much. Then breathe out slowly through pursed lips like you're blowing out a candle and feel your stomach fall as you tighten those muscles. Just a few of these deep, deliberate breaths can make a world of difference in calming your nervous system right down. So, knowing all this, knowing this incredible link between our gut, our minds, and our chest, how can we start to listen to our bodies a little differently? The next time you feel that tightness, and of course, after a doctor has rolled out the serious stuff, just take a second, pause, and listen. Is your body trying to tell you about that spicy dinner you had? Or is it maybe signaling the stress from a really tough week at work? Learning to understand that message, that's the real first step to finding relief.